So, hey, there it is already.
How are you?
Ooh, wait, I got some issues with my sound because I can hear you. I can't hear you. Um,
Can you hear me now? Is that better?
Wait a second. Can you hear me?
I can hear you okay.
Okay. The problem was that I attached a microphone, and so there wouldn't be any audio. I'm gonna get rid of it.
Okay.
Yeah. So cool. Nice to have you.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to.
Um, I'm really exciting. I'm really excited about the opportunity to talk to you. And wait.
Yeah, this is the first time that I've been invited to or done an Instagram live. So this is pretty cool. I've done lots of Zoom and Skype and that sort of thing,
Yeah,
obviously.
same here. Same
Uh,
here.
but yeah, Instagram live this is my first time trying this out. So let's see how it goes.
Yeah, I mean, well, so we just gonna talk about your project and have like a fun time.
Yeah.
Yeah, but cool. So again, thank you very much for joining the talk or being interested in talking. And so, well, I don't know, like, why don't you just go ahead and tell us who you are?
Yeah. Sure. As Alexandre mentioned, my name is Mark Bessoudo, and I am based in London, usually, but for the past months, I've been back in my home country in Canada on the East Coast, um, and I'll be getting back to London soon, hopefully. So I work at a company called WSP, which is a global engineering consultancy, and most of my work is related to. I'm on the global marketing team, so I do a lot of marketing and research
Mhm.
focused on things related to urban infrastructure and environmental engineering, building engineering, and that sort of thing. And I'm also an editorial consultant for an online magazine called The Possible. And that is really focused on exploring kind of the ideas and technologies that are shaping the future of buildings and the future of cities. So I encourage you all to go check out that website. It's the-possible.com. And
I
yeah, so my background is in most of my career, I've been involved with sustainability and engineering. So I worked for many years as a sustainability consultant, working with architects, urban planners, and that sort of thing to kind of improve the environmental performance of buildings and cities and to make them um, more sustainable, more human centric, I suppose. And I think that's where my a lot of my interest is in the aspects of engineering that are more related to kind of social issues, or kind of the intersection of people and environment and the built environment. So that's my
okay, well, that was quite impressive. Because I mean, I've seen your portfolio or I've been to your website. And I must say, I was really quite impressed about all like the different resources you listed, and it's like a really interesting work you're doing, and like really yeah, very interesting topic you're working with. And so yeah, but how? I don't know, like, how did you come up with the idea of creating Streetcola? And I must say, like, as soon as I saw it, like, I was a big fan of it. I was like, um, why? I mean, basically, the Coca-Cola logo is like omnipresent, right? It's like everywhere you look or you see, there's like this huge Coca-Cola sign, and but I've I haven't really seen like a project like yours, like Street Cola, where like all the images, are being collected. And how did this evolve? Like,
yeah. So I think it came from a couple of different directions, I suppose. But I should also say that your reaction that you're describing is one that I think is shared by many other people.
Yeah.
And I mean, yeah. So one of the factors was no one else really had this account, and I was always wishing that someone did have this account. And there are a
Yeah.
couple of factors that either they're not being used anymore. For the past couple of years, they've been kind of dead, or they weren't really to my satisfaction, I suppose, or didn't really capture the aesthetic essence that I wanted it to. So I thought, why don't I just create the account myself? But kind of backtracking a bit, last year when the kind of the first lockdowns happened around March, like almost a year ago,
Hmm.
like many other people, I had to cancel holidays and that sort of thing, and was just stuck in my small little flat in London. And so what I did was to kind of make up for that was I took to
Yeah.
Google Street View, and I don't know if you have ever used that or
I mean, sometimes, but like
yeah,
it's not really in my.
it's awesome. It's like you're really addicted to it.
Yeah.
Basically, those of you who don't know, it's a function or a feature on Google Maps where you can just, I think it's like, I don't know, 80% of the world is now has a kind of street level 360-degree view
Mm.
of a streetscape, or anywhere in a city or town, and not even, it doesn't even have to be a city. So I essentially I first started to use Google Street View to see some of the places that I was supposed to go to on my holiday but couldn't go to.
Yeah.
Then that quickly evolved into just going into any like random place in the world that I could go to. And it's just fascinating because you're essentially you're just placed into these random places around the world that you would, maybe you would never ever think about going to.
Mm.
You could just kind of see what ordinary life looked like there. So some of the places that I remember or that are notable are like, there's this place in Senegal called St. Louis that like now I
Yeah.
really go there because it's just like a cool little town. Kyrgyzstan has amazing Google Street View. Kyoto, it's
Yeah.
like every single street corner or on the sidewalk, on the curb, they have a Coca-Cola machine. And that's the one thing that I noticed. And then I kind of just thought about how, yeah, like the Coca-Cola logo is everywhere. And in Latin America, so many of the street fronts or shop fronts
Yeah.
have hand painted signs and the Coca-Cola
Yeah.
logo everywhere. Yeah, so that's kind of how and then I was just thinking about my own experiences with traveling and having seen the logo everywhere and how it can kind of
Right.
show up in the weirdest places. Yeah, and so I think my intention with it, I mean, first, before I get too philosophical, I think first and foremost it's just kind of fun and lighthearted.
Well, I mean, you can
Yeah.
go as philosophical as you want. Like,
I mean, it's just
um,
it's meant just to be fun, I think.
sure.
And but there is kind of a commentary about kind of the global commercialization of public space and the built environment, and
Mhm.
the Coca-Cola logo, as you said, is absolutely everywhere.
Yeah.
And I was also thinking about like the idea of cosmopolitanism, like to be a citizen of the world. And I think you automatically, for most people, I think you automatically have like positive connotations that it's like, oh, that's a good thing. And obviously there are many benefits and good things related to that.
Yeah.
But when you see the Coca-Cola logo absolutely everywhere, it also has this kind of negative connotation, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. Sure.
Is it good for everyone to be a citizen of the world? I don't know. So I think that's kind of the intention of this project. And then also, it's crowdsourcing. I'm getting images from other people, right?
Mhm.
Or getting images from people who've already posted. So there's
But
kind of,
was it right from the beginning like this, or did you reach out to people and then ask them if you could share those photos, or?
it's a bit of both, I think. Sometimes they've been posted already. They're kind of already in the public domain, I suppose. I haven't gotten any negative feedback of someone saying don't post that. But yeah, it's been the reaction has been pretty positive. People are,
Yeah.
and everyone has their Coca-Cola photos, or when they
Absolutely,
see
absolutely. I
they
mean, even I was thinking about like sending you one of my images, and then I saw, because I'm based in Berlin,
Yeah.
And at Leipziger Straße, we have like a huge old building with like this huge Coca-Cola sign on top of it, but you already posted it.
Okay.
So
Yeah, yeah.
that was basically the only one. And no, but I mean, it's funny enough because I noticed that on your account there are many works shot in like northern African countries, in Morocco, Tunisia, so on. And during my travels through different North African countries, and especially also in my home country, in the Congo, there's this basically this glorification of Coca-Cola. So,
Yeah.
I mean, Coca-Cola stands for, I don't know, like yeah, how do you say it in English? Like for globalization and development and the new world, and it's really
Progress.
progress. Exactly, progress was the word, and I always like noticed that, especially in those countries, the logo is way more present than, for example, in Northern Europe, and it's I really like that there are so many works, especially from certain areas you usually don't see anything of,
Yeah.
and
Yeah, I think there is that kind of dichotomy of, um, or maybe in the developed world, or in North
yeah,
America, or Western Europe, maybe the logo is maybe it is just as present, but you don't notice it as much,
yeah,
or
exactly,
a different perception when you're in those places. Whereas, and I've been to Morocco as well,
yeah,
and yeah, I just remember. I mean, not just the Coca-Cola. I just remember every small town, no matter
yeah,
how, had like a candy shop with like chocolate bars, and
mm,
yeah, definitely the Coca-Cola logo everywhere in Morocco, Mexico too. Mexicans drink a lot of Coca-Cola, but yeah, I mean, we don't associate the logo with progress. It's kind of because it's already part of our environment. Uh,
absolutely. And I mean, we have like or we quote unquote have like a more critical view on like this multinational company. Oh, I think maybe I don't know, maybe we should mention that like this talk is not in any way affiliated to Coca-Cola or to the company or
there's
something.
right.
So
People
there's
ask me. People have said like, "Are you?" People have either said, "Are you getting paid?" or they've said, "You should be getting paid." Um, but no,
yeah,
there's no affiliation. And I think I mentioned to you in a previous email that I don't even drink it. So
yeah, you said it. I mean,
so
you sent me the I mean, I don't know. I just called it like the Streetcola Manifesto, and which I also posted in the captions underneath the first mention of your project. But you couldn't. I mean, I couldn't upload the captions in full because there's like a limit or a sign cap, and you. I mean, before you started the project, I mean, in this captions or in this manifesto, you mentioned some criticism you thought of beforehand,
yeah,
and could you elaborate on the kind of criticism you were thinking about, or
yeah.
what went through your head?
Yeah, and I think just in general, anytime I undertake any kind of project, whether mostly like a writing project where I'm trying to express an opinion of some sort,
Hmm.
I always try to think of the criticisms or counter criticisms that I could receive. I think that kind of um, it helps refine my own views. I think of
Yeah,
and yeah. So obviously, I think there's obvious criticisms of doing something like this. In that, it's like, well, aren't you just perpetuating a culture of globalization and homogenizing the built environment?
yeah,
Why on earth are you kind of glorifying this company that is selling a product that isn't good for you particularly,
mm,
and that is um, kind of taking over, I suppose, certain like kind of local customs and cultures.
Yeah.
And so, I thought about all those things, and I think I also mentioned to you how I try to approach this as like an impartial journalist or like an
Yeah,
anthropologist,
exactly.
being an observer rather than a participant in it. And so my intention is to kind of present these photos, or present this commentary, I suppose, without being kind of an active participant in it. But I think at the end of the day, I am an active participant, no matter how much I try.
Sure.
Um,
But
yeah.
going back to you mentioning yourself as an impartial journalist, I was thinking of what criterias or what objective criteria you use to decide on whether you're going to show a picture or not. Like, what is your selection process?
I mean, that's a good question. I don't know if there is any objective criteria. I mean, as you know, with any kind of art, or especially with photography, there's a certain subjectivity. I think it is kind of subjective. I can't think of any particular like metric or criteria that I would use.
So it's basically purely intuitive. If you see something and you're like, that's it.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's how it is. I mean, and most of the pictures that I'm showing are kind of the street photography,
Exactly. Yeah.
photography, but there are a few that are more like kind of still life or contemporary staged photography. So not opposed to that either. But I think once you start doing the kind of the staged and still life or contemporary photography, that's when you start to creep into the kind of glorification of a product.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
It's just the street photography that is more. I think that is more. That's more impartial of presenting it. Yeah, but I for the longest time, I've just been really interested in graphic design and logos, and I think I'm able to kind of divorce the meaning or symbolism of a logo from the aesthetic of it.
Yeah.
I don't know. So I don't particularly, I think the Coca-Cola logo I think it's an amazing logo. It's lasted 100 years with pretty much no or change. And regardless of what the product is, I appreciate the logo from a graphic design standpoint. Yeah. So in terms of the photography, I can't really think of any objective criteria. Just kind of when I see it, I know. Kind of.
But you have no prior like background in photography, right? I mean, you mentioned it. You told me that basically you're not a photographer, or you don't have anything in particular to do with photography.
Other than it's just a hobby of mine that I really enjoy, but I have no kind of professional or no professional training or professional involvement in it, I suppose. It's just a hobby that grew out of kind of a lifelong world traveling and kind of attention to the urban environment, attention to design. And I'm one of the least technical. I'm like the least technical person when it comes to photographic equipment or post process. I kind of stick. I've got my iPhone. I've got an analog film camera. I've got a mirrorless DSLR that I can't even remember what brand it is. Really, I'm not obsessed. I don't dive into the technicalities of photography. One of the best books that I ever read on the subject was a great book called The Practice of Contemplative Photography. And
by whom is it?
It's by Michael Wood and Andy Carr. I think they're both Canadian. And it's a fantastic book because it is, again, they say at the beginning, it's not about the technicalities of photography. It's about the art of seeing, or the act of perception. And it's kind of like I suppose it's like photography as a meditation, and it's more what you see or how you see, as opposed to getting bogged down in the technical
Sure.
and I think what I like most about photography is it really captures the like the ordinariness of every
Yeah.
day, and those are the things that I've always kind of been attracted to, or that have caught my attention. And I think photography is the medium that uh, can best translate that.
Mm. And that is actually like one of the for me a big appeal regarding your project, because when I saw when I saw like the first images, I mean, I think I've been following you since the very beginning, or you followed me, or you started following me, and then I saw your account. And it was just like a couple of images online. But what struck me from the beginning was that it's again just like ordinary situations. You know, it's not about emphasizing the brand or the logo or whatever. It's like a scenery in which the logo is I don't know, seamlessly incorporated in. You know, it's like and I think yesterday you posted in your stories an explanation, or like a text by a photographer.
Mm-hmm.
I think he also shot, I think it was like three or four guys in the foreground with the Coca-Cola
Yeah.
sign in the background. And so how do you when you get in touch with the photographers, like do you also start like a conversation about the images, or do they have something to say? For example, like the photographer from yesterday.
Yeah. So that photograph that I posted, the one you're mentioning or you're referring to from Morocco, that
Yeah.
I just through research online. I don't even know how I came upon some blog that had that photo with that explanation. So I don't always get. It's not always like a two-way communication with the photographer. Sometimes it's
Hmm.
just I kind of present what I find in my own research. Um, but as I was mentioning before, people in the kind of crowdsourcing aspect of it, people do reach out and have something to say about it. And I feel like there's so many people out there that have a story to tell
Yeah.
about about the logo. And in some cities, the logo is like a permanent fixture in a
Hmm.
particular. So like I know in San Francisco, they used to have this huge Coca-Cola sign on the rooftop of a building that was taken down a year or so ago,
Okay.
and people were really upset because it was such a fixture of that part of the city. And it's funny to think about how, I bet you when it went up, people complained that it was going to be an eyesore and that it wasn't needed,
Yeah.
but it was just a part of the everyday kind of urban environment.
Sure.
Um,
Sure. Because when I'm thinking back of the building I mentioned before, here at Leipziger Straße, in Berlin, um, I too would be pretty upset if like they would remove the sign, because I don't know, since uh, I don't know, the first day ever I went, when I went out exploring the city and I saw this building, it had always been this. I don't know, this landmark for me, and still to this day, I sometimes, like when I go out and take a walk, I go to this place and I just look at this building because it looks so amazing. And for me, it's also like a um, kind of time travel, travel
yeah,
to the past of the big neon signs, the big logos on buildings, and it's like a reminder of like a history, or and it also adds to the identity of a city,
yeah.
right?
I think that's a big topic and an important point to make. And I think where the Coca-Cola logo comes in, it, it kind of straddles two worlds because um, things like graphic design and fonts or typefaces,
Mhm.
they can really define a place. So like the UK has or like the London Underground or
Yeah,
Street,
sure, sure.
very particular typeface
Yeah.
that's used. see it, it just screams London. And the same thing can be said for New York,
Mhm.
for Berlin and other cities in Germany. And so I think, there are particular elements of graphic design and typography that really define a place. And you could call that like a vernacular, like a design vernacular.
Mhm.
Um, but I think that Coca-Cola is kind of, in some ways, is the opposite of that, because you have the same logo in every place in the world, which takes
Yeah.
away the uniqueness or the identity of a place. But at the same time, like you said, you can have that element, which is, the logo itself is the same everywhere in the world. But if
Yeah.
you have,
Yeah.
sign atop a building like the one you're referring to in Berlin,
Mhm.
then it kind of becomes, it takes on the uniqueness, or it creates the uniqueness of
Yeah,
that.
absolutely.
Um, yeah, so it's like one of those things where I kind of go back and forth in my own mind of like,
Yeah.
is it a good thing? Is it not? I don't know. It can be. It can be a good thing.
Yeah, it depends on like how you work with it or how you regard it,
Yeah.
And in your in the so-called manifesto, you wrote you talked about like a kind of visual pollution.
Yeah.
And I thought the idea of visual pollution, yeah, I thought of it as pretty interesting because, as I mentioned before, like during my travels through Eastern European countries or Northern African countries, I noticed that visual pollution, which could be regarded, as criticism or critically regarded on one hand, but on the other hand, could be something really beautiful, something great, because visual pollution kind of, for me at least, added to kind of an atmosphere or like a feel to a place.
Hmm.
And how would you, respond to criticism regarding that?
Yeah, and this is actually a topic that I've explored. I've written an article about it for the Possible, that magazine and website I was talking about before,
Mhm.
where I explored kind of the history and the kind of benefits and negatives of visual pollution.
Yeah.
And I think it boils down to the fact that, like, we have kind of you know there's a sensory experience in the built environment, whether you like it or not, in terms of
Mm.
how you sense a place. And that could be
Yeah.
in the Times Square, where you have like cognitive overload, where it's like
Yeah.
your mind is overloaded with input to the senses. But it also is relative to being in a small town or in a remote
Right.
village. Um, and so I think, I think visual pollution is a thing that needs to be contended with,
Mm.
um, because it has not just kind of the immediate cognitive kind of brain effects or
Yeah.
mental health, but there are the kind of wider political, economic, and commercial issues that go along with it. Because most of the time it comes down to advertising, is what it is, right?
Okay, so you basically distinguish between, I mean, so you think of visual pollution in a broader term. No, not in a broader term, but more in the term of advertising and
Yeah.
commercialization and noises, and not like in
Yeah.
this chaotic.
Well, I mean, the term, when I think of the term visual pollution, that's what I immediately think of, is the kind of the more
Mhm.
commercialized advertising, distraction type model. Um, so there was a city, Sao Paulo in Brazil. This
Yeah,
was like 10 years ago, 10 to 15 years ago. They introduced a law called the Clean City Law.
amazing.
Yeah, so they were
Yeah,
the first large city, I think, in the world, and it's the largest city in South America,
yeah.
where they ban outdoor advertising over a certain size or a certain, or of a certain type. And I think
Mhm.
it's place. So they basically took down the advertising and banned it. So there's
Yeah,
no,
there's nothing.
and other cities and other regions around the world have adopted that. So I think that's kind of one end of the spectrum.
Mm.
But then I was thinking about, like you said, in villages in North Africa.
Yeah.
I go a lot. I was recently in Oaxaca City, and the hand painted signs on the outdoor walls of buildings. They are advertisements, but they're done
Mhm.
way, and they add to the character of the place.
Absolutely.
and they are kind of quintessential,
Yeah.
wherever, pick any city you want. And so um, I think there's kind of different models of advertising in that sense.
Hmm.
Um, and I wouldn't consider that visual pollution. And maybe it's just because I'm new to the place, so it
Yeah.
kind of captures my attention in a new
But
way.
would you consider it art then? Because
Oh
I mean,
yeah,
right now there are like movements of people like going back to that kind of like sign making, and advertising, hand painted advertising. But would you consider this an art then, or
100%. It's I don't think not anyone can do it. There is a craftsmanship to it.
absolutely? Yeah.
And yeah, and that was actually someone commented to me recently about the Coca-Cola logo. They said, it's not just that it's everywhere in the world, uh, no matter how big or small the place is. It's
Yeah.
that most of the time, it's even when it's hand painted, done well. Like
Yeah.
the
Absolutely. Yeah.
well, how do they get away with that? I don't know. Like, I mean, I've seen some instances where the logo is done really poorly, but
Mm.
for the most part, it's done really well. I think I don't know, that's an incredible feat without the quality control of going through some type of process, or
Yeah.
it just happens organically, but it's usually done well. Um, but yeah, hand painted signs, I think is definitely an art form.
That's great.
And there's also like wayfinding, so the concept of helping people find their way through a city. So that's
Hmm.
like transit maps on the subway or street signs. And I think that's another area where cities have their own kind of unique identity. So a
Yeah.
street
Absolutely.
has its own certain look, which is completely different from a street sign in Paris or street sign in Toronto. So I think that kind of all adds up to the
Mhm.
character.
Are you toying with the idea of maybe taking a camera and taking pictures yourself, or
Yeah,
are you going to collect
I do
both?
have I do have some Streetcola photos of my own that I'm just waiting to. I'll put them out at some point.
Good.
Some Google Street View from my previous.
Yeah.
Um, Other ones are just from my travels that I'll post at some point. But I've talked about this with friends that like it becomes addictive. You start to your eyes are attuned, like they're like you're on the lookout for the logo now.
Yeah. I
Um,
can imagine.
so I think yeah, once I get back out there to do more street photography, I think it's something that I'll continue to do.
That's great. I'm looking forward. Like I'm pretty interested in like seeing how you perceive the world, especially with like your background and the kind of education you had and the projects you were working on. And but do you have like any, I don't know, like any plans for Streetcola yet, or will it be just like a fun little side project?
Yeah, I think for right now, it'll just be a fun little side project. I don't know. Do you have any recommendations? Do you have any idea? What?
Well, yeah, you could, I don't know, at some point, set up exhibition or something, or going into print. And I think, like maybe putting together like a little zine, like a small zine or a bigger book. I don't know. I
I think
think,
yeah, that would be. I would definitely be up for that. I think it's a good idea. And yeah, just based on the enthusiasm and positive feedback that I've gotten so far from other
mhm,
people,
mhm.
I think that would be well received. Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
I'm looking forward. So, as I said, like I'm a huge fan of your project,
Yeah.
and I'm excited to see what's coming next.
Great, and I have to say I'm a big fan of your work too, and like I've been a
Thanks.
long time fan and follower of your All Cities Are Beautiful. Um,
Thanks.
I
Thanks.
Yeah, kind of what you do to prop up other photographers that are kind of have a like-minded spirit and perception of the world. I think that's a great thing.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I think keep that up. It's a great thing.
Thanks a lot. Likewise. Likewise. And yeah, I don't know. I think I already mentioned it twice or so, but like I really, really like the pictures you're showing, and it completely it's like 100%, you know, the kind of images I like to look at, and I would like to recommend through my channel. And yeah, so thanks thanks for your work, and thanks, you know, for the time you're devoting to your project.
Yeah,
And
I've got like hundreds and hundreds of photos saved. I'm just to
post them.
yeah, it's
I
hard,
mean,
hard to hold back. You know, it's hard to
yeah,
hold back and put them out bit by bit because I just want to get them out there because they're
yeah,
so look
yeah.
at.
Same here. It's exactly the same. I mean, like I'm scouring through Instagram
Yeah,
like every day, and I'm, you know, saving images, and I'm really like, I could post this now, and that one, and this one, and this one, and I'm like, you know, I'm having a hard time not to post everything at once,
yeah,
but we'll get there.
cool.
All right. So, Mark, I think we call it a day.
Sure. It's yeah, it was great talking to you and nice to
Likewise.
and yeah, hopefully we can do this again, or hopefully I can return the favor and maybe ask you a few questions sometime.
Well, I'm always up for
Yeah.
anything. So, yeah, again, thank you very much for taking some time off to talk to me. And yeah, cool.
Okay.
So, have nice holidays.
Thanks, you too, and thanks to everyone who joined and to everyone who's following. Appreciate it.
Cool.